Believe it or not, women don't want nice. And the moment you truly understand that, not just hear it, not just agree with it, but actually understand it at a deep level, is the moment your entire experience with women begins to change. Because most men are living inside a lie they were taught early. A quiet lie. A socially accepted lie. A comfortable lie. Be nice. Be polite. Be agreeable. Be available. Don't upset her. Don't challenge her. Don't risk losing her. Just be the good guy and everything will work out. But it doesn't. And that's where confusion begins. Because you followed the script. You did what you were told. You showed up. You listened. You cared. You gave your time, your energy, your attention. And yet, somehow, she still pulled away. She still lost interest. She still changed. And now you're left questioning yourself. What did I do wrong? The answer is uncomfortable, but it's simple. You weren't too little. You were too much of the wrong thing. Because what most men call nice is not actually kindness. It's compliance. It's fear disguised as virtue. It's the quiet need to be accepted, approved, and chosen. And women can feel that instantly. Not through your words, but through your behavior. Through your energy. Through the subtle signals you send without realizing it. You see, attraction is not logical. It's not built on checklists. It's not something you negotiate into existence. It's felt. And what is felt is not what you say. It's who you are underneath everything you say. A man who is nice in the way most people define it is often a man who avoids tension. He avoids disagreement. He avoids standing firm in his own truth if it might cost him approval. He says yes when he means no. He laughs when he doesn't find it funny. He agrees when he doesn't actually agree. He gives more than he receives, and slowly, without realizing it, he starts to disappear. Not physically, but internally. He loses his edge. His presence becomes softer, weaker, less defined. And that is where attraction begins to fade. Because what women respond to is not softness alone. It's grounded strength. It's emotional stability. It's a man who is calm, centered, and unshaken by external behavior. A man who doesn't adjust himself just to be liked. A man who doesn't panic when things feel uncertain. A man who can sit in silence without needing to fill it. A man who can walk away without needing closure. That is power. And that is what creates attraction. Not because it is performed, but because it is real. There is a difference between a man who is kind and a man who is nice. A kind man gives without losing himself. A nice man gives in order to be liked. A kind man sets boundaries. A nice man avoids them. A kind man can say no. A nice man fears it. And women feel that difference immediately, because one comes from strength, the other comes from fear. And attraction cannot grow in fear. It suffocates there. The Stoics understood this distinction perfectly. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And one of the greatest wastes of a man's life is spending it trying to be liked by people who are not capable of respecting him. When you act from fear, when you sacrifice your own integrity for approval, you are wasting your life. You are trading your dignity for a fleeting sense of acceptance that will never satisfy you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This is the Stoic foundation of authentic strength. When you live by this principle, you do not bend yourself to fit the expectations of others. You stand firm in your own truth, and that standing firm is what creates attraction. Think about your own experiences. Think about the moments when you felt most anxious around a woman. When you overthought your words, when you checked your phone too often, when you waited for her reply, when your mood depended on her attention. That wasn't attraction. That was attachment mixed with insecurity, and the more you acted from that place, the more control you gave away. Because the moment you need something from someone, they feel it. They may not say it. They may not even consciously understand it, but they feel it. And that feeling changes how they respond to you. You become predictable. You become easy to read. You become someone who is trying instead of someone who simply is. And that subtle shift changes everything. Because attraction lives in the unknown. It grows in curiosity. It thrives in emotional tension. Not chaos. Not confusion. but a quiet, controlled tension that comes from not being fully predictable. When you are always available, always responsive, always agreeable, there is no tension. There is no space for curiosity. There is no reason for her to wonder about you. Everything is already given, and what is freely given without resistance is rarely valued. This is not about playing games. This is about understanding human nature. Value is created through perception, and perception is shaped by behavior. When you behave like someone who is afraid to lose her, she perceives you as someone who is easily replaceable. When you behave like someone who values himself, his time, his energy, she perceives you as someone different, someone rare, someone worth paying attention to. And that perception creates attraction. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly." This applies to attraction as well. It is not built in a single moment of brilliance. It is built slowly, through consistent presence, through the quiet assurance that you have a life of your own, through the confidence that you do not need her approval to feel complete. When she senses this, she knows she has found a man of substance, a man who is not desperate, not clinging, not needy, a man who can stand on his own 2 feet. And that is the kind of man women are drawn to. But here is where most men make another mistake. They hear this and they try to act differently. They try to appear detached. They try to appear confident. They try to create mystery, but it doesn't work. Because again, it's performance. And performance can be felt. Real attraction does not come from acting like a confident man. It comes from becoming one. And becoming one requires something most people avoid: discomfort, growth, self-confrontation. It requires you to look at yourself honestly, to see where you are acting from fear, to notice where you are seeking validation, to recognize where you are abandoning your own standards just to keep someone around, and then to change that, not for her, but for you. Because the truth is, the more you build your life around trying to keep someone, the more you lose yourself. And the more you lose yourself, the less attractive you become. Attraction is not about chasing, it's about becoming disciplined, becoming emotionally stable, becoming focused, becoming independent in your thinking, your decisions, your direction. When your life is centered around purpose, everything changes. You no longer have time to overthink every message. You no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer feel shaken by small changes in behavior because your identity is no longer tied to her. It is rooted in something deeper. And that depth is what women feel. That is what creates presence. That is what creates impact. Because now, when you speak, it is not to impress. It is to express. When you act, it is not to gain approval. It is to remain aligned with yourself. And that alignment creates a different kind of energy. Calm energy. A grounded energy. A controlled energy. And that energy is rare. In a world where most people are reactive, emotional, and easily influenced, a man who is steady stands out without trying. He doesn't need to be loud. He doesn't need to dominate conversations. He doesn't need to prove anything. His presence speaks for him. And women notice that, not because he is trying to be noticed, but because he is not trying at all. And that is the paradox. The more you try to be attractive, the less you are. The more you focus on becoming, the more attraction happens naturally. The Stoics understood this paradox intimately. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." When you are no longer anxious about whether she will choose you, when you are no longer dependent on her response for your happiness, you become free. And freedom is the most attractive quality a person can possess. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you realize that your worth is not determined by her approval, you become unshakable. And that unshakability is what draws women to you. Because in a world of uncertainty, a man who is certain of himself is a refuge. He is a safe harbor in the storm. And women are instinctively drawn to that safety, that stability, that quiet strength. So no, women don't want nice. They want something deeper. Something more stable, something more real. They want a man who can handle himself, a man who can handle uncertainty, a man who can handle them without losing control of himself. Because relationships are not about perfection. They are about dynamics, push and pull, closeness and distance, connection and individuality. And if you lose yourself in that dynamic, the balance breaks. But if you remain centered, if you remain grounded, if you remain emotionally in control, the dynamic becomes something powerful, something magnetic, something that cannot be forced but can be felt. And when that happens, you stop asking what women want because you become the kind of man they respond to naturally. Not because you followed a script, but because you rewrote your own. Think about the moments you felt most alive around a woman. When you were not performing. When you were not overthinking. When you were simply present, confident, and unbothered. That is the version of you that women respond to. That is the version of you that creates attraction. Not the version that tries to be perfect. Not the version that seeks approval. The version that is simply here. Simply present. Simply enough. That is the man you need to become. And that is the man women are waiting to meet. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes the foundation of your transformation. The Stoics understood that the only thing you truly control is your own mind. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When a woman tests you, when she pulls away, when she sends mixed signals, your reaction is everything. If you react with neediness, with desperation, with fear, you reveal that you are not in control of yourself. But if you react with calm, with patience, with steady presence, you reveal that you are a man who cannot be moved. And that is the man she will respect. That is the man she will desire. That is the man she will fight to keep. The most powerful thing you can do is not to chase her. It is to become the kind of man who does not need to chase. A man who is centered in his own purpose. A man who is focused on his own growth. A man who values his time and energy. A man who is not afraid to walk away if the relationship does not serve him. That kind of man is rare. And because he is rare, he is valuable. And because he is valuable, women are drawn to him. Not because he is trying to be attractive, but because he simply is. So take this to heart. Stop trying to be nice. Stop trying to be agreeable. Stop trying to avoid conflict. Start being real. Start being honest. Start being you. Not the version of you that you think she wants. The version of you that you actually are. The version that has standards. The version that has opinions. The version that can say no. The version that can walk away. That is the version that will attract her. Not because you are trying to, but because you are finally being yourself. And that is the most attractive thing in the world. If this video gave you clarity on what women really want and how to stop being the nice guy who finishes last, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It tells YouTube to show this to more men who need to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Every day we break down Stoic wisdom and female psychology to help you build unshakable confidence, master your mind, and become the man women naturally respond to. Share this video with a brother who's still trying to be nice and wondering why it isn't working. Trust me, he needs to hear this. And remember, a kind man gives without losing himself. A nice man gives to be liked. Become the kind of man who gives from strength, not from fear. That is what creates real attraction. See you in the next one.